o'clock, and we're down to 3 agenda. It's June 21st, 7 p.m. We're in the second floor conference room and on streaming live on the World Wide Web.
No,
But
we're not. No, we're not live. We're
Oh,
just
no, we
recording
aren't.
it.
We will be tape delayed on the World Wide Web at a later time.
I just need to record. I don't need to put it out there.
You really want our mugs all over out there?
I'll call the order to the City of Brainerd Personnel Finance Committee, and we'll start with the introductions.
Tiffany Stingline, Alderman Ward 3. Jennifer Bergman, City Administrator. Connie Hillman, City Finance Director.
Alderman at Large, Kevin Stunek.
Mike Besto, Police Chief.
Chris Schubert, HR Director.
Jesse Ernst, Communications Intern. Teresa Berg, Brainerd Dispatch.
Gabe Johnson, Chair of the Committee. We have 4 items, but I would ask consent from my members of the committee to remove item number 3 from the agenda tonight and push it to the next meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Before we get to item number 1, are you officially the police chief? Like, are we done with the probation periods and everything? Kelly Devins asked me that at the last
We
meeting.
still have probation.
But you're officially the police chief.
There's a lot of things going on there.
Okay, well, I'll just say yes if anybody asks.
He's officially probated.
Yeah. So the first item is to authorize the purchase of sesquicentennial dispatch wrap. Jesse?
Come on up, Jesse.
Alright. So for the sesquicentennial week of September 18th to the 25th, we are asking the council to devote $1,375 from the Special Projects Fund for promotion through a dispatch wrap the weekend of September 11th. That would also include a insertion in the Echoland Shopper and $1,000 extra wraps. And this would reach a broad audience up to 43,000 households, and just encouraging people to promote the sesquicentennial, having the calendar events on the wrap, and some key points in the city's history.
And maybe a salute to the troops on 9/11.
Add it in there.
Stop. Okay, any questions?
No.
I move to authorize the purchase of the dispatch wrap, the additional insert in the Echoland Shopper, and the 1,000 loose wraps for a total of $1,325.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any discussion? Just a point, this is gonna come out of the council special projects fund, of which
Budgeted
there's-
line item. There's not actually a fund. It's just a
But the budget, yeah, the $20,000 that's budgeted that we haven't yet
Yes.
spent, yeah.
Yes.
We should create a fund so the money rolls over every year if we don't spend the money.
Or it just goes back to the general fund and we can use it to lower the tax levy in future
Well, if
years.
you'd recommend lowering the tax levy, Connie, I'd have that conversation.
Putting
Touche. Hearing no other discussion, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Next up is the adjustment of wages for temporary employees.
Good evening. So for this, I'm hoping maybe we can take it in 2 different parts. Let's talk about the first part first. So this year, and actually in several years, for our street department, we've had to beg, steal, and borrow to get someone to work out there. And that's actually applied to other positions this year too. So this year, we had hired 2 people, 1 person backed out at street department. So we've had to borrow some of our engineering interns to help out over there. We've also had to use a park maintenance person now to help fill in. He's not full-time at streets, but he's there. So the person we originally hired, his name was Eric Smith, and Eric was hired at $13 an hour. The other people that are working with him, that are temporaries, are making more than he is, whether it is the engineering interns or our park maintenance person. So staff is recommending that we adjust his wage to $14 per hour to make him the same as at least the other person that's new there in the park maintenance people.
Would this be date forward?
Yes, going forward.
So really then the additional $536 is actually lower than that because it's not going to be for the whole 67 days that he's going to be hired.
Correct. For budget purposes, county budget's based on 67 days, so it's just easier to compare that way, so.
Ready?
Yeah.
I'd make a motion to approve a wage adjustment for Eric Smith to $14 per hour effective June 22nd, 2021.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. And the second item, Chris?
So the second part of this is this issue sparked a conversation with the department heads. And not only did parks have to modify quite a few of their wages, we've talked about that, but we also have some community service officers now and then our interns that are making less than the 14. We're just wondering where we go with this. Mike is here to talk about the community service officers and some of the challenges that he's had recruiting in those positions. And then I just wanted to show you what our other interns were making so you had an idea. So maybe to start with, Mike, do you want to talk about the CSOs at all?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Committee members, I think prior to it, we had some general conversation about our community service officers. Currently, right now, if you could look at, I think the original one was $12 an hour is where we're at based upon recent council action to get that up there for the internship. That's kind of where this thing whole started. Then we had some more conversations about, the lack of people even applying for us. And a lot of the stuff we came from was from the CLC college and utilizing, the people who are in the law enforcement local program to have them come over and we were kind of in line, if you will, with the Minsky doing, doing some work in the school. We refunded for that on a work program issue. Well, we found out afterwards that that's actually, we're paying less than what they were getting as students over there. So how do we become more competitive? And how do we draw some of those folks over to us to get that, next level of experience? And a lot of them say, well, I'm not gonna leave because I have a work study. I'm getting paid a little bit more than coming over to you guys, even though I would like the opportunity. So part of ours is get, CLC students the opportunity to actually work for a police department, foster that relationship. And a lot of our CSOs have gone on to be police officers for us or agencies around us. So how can we, encourage them to, apply for us? And one of the things that I think 2 or 3 meetings ago we talked about that pay of $14, $15 an hour. And in today's work environment, I don't even know if that's enough, and you can go and work, 4 seasons we talked about is $16 an hour, 15, 16 for these kids, and we can't get college kids to come in for that. And so I think that to bring that rate up, talk with Connie as far as our budget is, we're looking really positive. We just recently, and it'll be on the next agenda because it just happened Friday, but another CSO that just resigned, and our numbers are going to be down because 2 of our current CSOs will be leaving for college. And so we're going to be looking at having to hire more off the street and hopefully some CLC college, and how do we entice those folks to come to us?
Motion?
Well, I think before we have a motion, we're kind of discussing maybe just moving all of our temporary and CSO and interns across the board up to $14 an hour. And looking at this spreadsheet, a handful of them are at 14. It's mostly the police department that are not.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesse, for a 50-cent raise.
As a second-year intern with us.
Yeah, so overall, the total cost to the city by bumping everybody to $14 an hour looks like it would be $5,802.
And that would be based on a full year, like Connie had mentioned.
Wouldn't that actually be a total of $9,900?
I'm looking at the spreadsheet, I don't know,
Right.
it's 5,000.
Right, I think though you have to say we're already over budget with the wages we are paying now. It would be an additional amount if we increase it to this, so we have to add those together. However, it's not truly going to be $9,900, it's actually going to be less than that because it's going forward. And this is as if we're budgeting everybody for the whole time getting $14 an hour. And the CSOs, we don't exactly know how many days, how many hours they're going to be able to work either. So I would say it's less than $8,000, less than $7,000 even, to get them all to $14 an hour.
Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 columns in the spreadsheet, and you don't have one that just tells us the number we're looking for?
Well, part of it is we wanted to show you what your budget number was, to show you if you were over budget or under budget.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, to me, it was important, especially when you look at like your, the budgeted hourly for your park maintenance people. You were budgeting $11 for most of those, and we couldn't hire for
Yep.
that. So I wanted to show you what that was and what that difference was in some of those areas. So no, I did not have one column that listed both.
So we budgeted 60,200. Right now, if we change nothing, we're expected to pay 64,374.
Yes.
Correct.
If we bump everybody to $14 an hour,
So,
That's 70.
that'll be a 70,000. So it is $5,800 more than what we currently expect where we're sitting right now, but not the budget, but about $9,000 more than the budget.
Right, which is
Okay.
actually going to be less. Yes.
I understand, but it's less than $10,000. It's largely coming out of the public safety fund, which has the excess cash being not at full staff. So all we need to really debate is whether Jesse deserves that 50 cents an hour or not.
Not awkward at all.
I'm ready for a motion. I just want to make sure I have it clear so I can explain it upstairs.
All right, I'd make a motion to direct the additional wage adjustment to at least $14 per hour should be made at this time for our interns and police department community service officers and CSO and 50 cents.
Second, actually, there's going to be 2 seasonals as well. I mean, you're gonna have the HR intern, the communications intern, and the police intern that are all going to go up.
Yeah.
And then you have the CSOs. You know, you might wanna just clarify that we're gonna have the HR intern, communications intern, and police intern go to $14 an hour effective tomorrow, and all CSOs will start at $14 an hour, or be bumped up to $14.
Right, and going forward, at least for 2021, the rest of this year, it'll be $14 an hour on temporary or seasonal, and then we'll work on the budget next year and maybe look at 15 or 16.
Right, so it's just these positions. There's actually like 20 employees at parks that are not getting adjusted. So some of those are making less than the 14, whether they're concession workers and stuff like that. I did not list all of those individuals. I only listed maintenance to show you how they compare to the street department.
So the.
Okay, so this isn't temporary summer workers, this isn't consent, this is interns and CSOs.
Okay, so it's not the concession workers, it's none of them, okay. That's better, yeah.
Because that's by the Parks Department,
Yeah.
or
Okay,
the Park Board.
What did the park, and just, oh, they're already at 14?
There's summer maintenance employees.
Okay. So we don't need them to authorize it?
That's why I think you might want to list out this motion to be positions, seasonal positions that you're going to do, so it's very clear that it doesn't affect those seasonal park employees.
Yeah,
yeah, we'll
I'll
just add
refer
that.
to the spreadsheet, everybody listen to the spreadsheet.
But we'll add to the motion I made seasonal employees.
I won't say seasonal,
Not seasonal, because we're
Because
not,
that's-
we don't want.
not
Interns
seasonal.
and community service officers.
but not everybody qualifies for an intern
So we
either.
just leave it.
That's why I'm thinking you need to do specific positions. It's the HR intern, the,
Communications intern and the police intern.
Do you need
and
us,
then CSOs.
do you need us to withdraw that motion and make this super clear in the motion, or can we just trust?
Well, he just read the motion, or the requested motion.
But I would say the interns, like for example, you can see which internships we get reimbursed for. So are they really interns or are they just seasonal temporary staff? That's my clarification, why I'm saying it's not interns or seasonal
Well, you can
staff.
explain that.
It's these positions, we're moving to $14
Yeah,
an hour.
and you can be an intern without Sourcewell reimbursing you. I mean, interns and interns.
But what makes it an internship versus just a seasonal employee?
Their
Title.
title.
What's the difference between a police chief and an interim police chief?
A probational one.
We don't call them interns, we call them temporary seasonal employees. We've always called them
Okay.
seasonal employees, always. We just call them interns so that we can get
Yeah, I'll
reimbursed.
refer to the spreadsheet, everybody listed on the spreadsheet and their job titles will be going to $14 an hour starting wage.
Okay,
I think the motion is sufficient.
all right.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, that motion carries. We pulled this one from the agenda, now we have 17 minutes to discuss the 2022 debt levy. Connie?
And we don't need to take that long at all. There was a memo attached, gave a lot of information on the different types of debt that we have and how we pay off that debt, whether or not it's levy, assessments and levy, revenues, and so on. The idea is that we have enough money in our debt service accounts as of 12/31 to pay the February of the following year's principal and interest payments. So what we are levying for in the 2021, or the 2022 debt levy is we're actually levying for the August 1st, 2022 and February 2023 debt service payments. I think it's if you do the drop down or the arrow side, you can get right to the graph.
There you go.
Right here, step memo, and then I think what we're doing right here, just colorful pages, I think what you were going for. So all we know right now is what our cash balance is at May 31st. We have received some of our tax settlement, but we haven't received it in yet. And really it's easier if we wait until when we get the final settlement in July so that we know what our 6-month collection is, and then we can kind of base December's off of that. So we do our projected cash balance. Like I said, what we levied for in 2021 is to pay that February 1st, 2022 payment. And so this is our projected cash payment after that, which we are sitting very good. As we talked with Gabe, that this used to be millions in the hole.
Mm-hmm. The balance was millions in the hole.
Right. When after we pay that debt service, when we do this calculation, this was negative 1.5 million, if not more.
Because we always made the payment, whether
Yes.
the fund balance was there or not, the payments were made and put the fund balance in the negative.
In essence, we were borrowing from other funds to pay those debt services, but it was always paid on time. So then we know what we have to pay for our August 1st, 2022, our February 1st, 2023 payments. To that, by statute, we have to add a 5% overlay to that in case there's not payments of taxes. And then what we do is we estimate any revenue that we think we're going to get. So there are special assessments, and then we also take into consideration what our fire advisory board pays as part of their payments to offset some of the equipment certificates. So we come to the amount called our calculated levy. To this also, we need to look if we're going to issue any new debt that we currently don't have. For example, we know we have it budgeted that we're going to issue debt for the 2021 street construction projects. That was part of our budget process. We still don't have the debt schedule, so it's only staff's estimate in there of what the payments are going to be. And I'm probably high, to be perfectly honest, but I'd rather be high than be low and then be scrambling. So that gets our calculated payment. Then what staff does is we look at, okay, so this is what our calculated levy can be, but we have quite a bit of cash balance over here. That can be from people prepaying the special assessments ahead of time and not having it go to their taxes. That can affect, we get more money up front than what we plan, because when we schedule our debt levy, we assume that we're gonna get 1/10 of it over the next 10 years. So that could be why this cash balance is high. So I kind of look and say, okay, this debt is going to be paid off soon. Well, we have quite a cash balance. Let's lower our proposed debt levy for the following year as well. So when we come into that, and then I'm also saying, historically, we've always continued to levy for our road improvement projects. And so assuming that we're going to levy again in 2022, we can structure it so that we can pay less in interest if we have a bond payment scheduled and we've already levied for it. If that all kind of makes sense. So what I would propose at this point is that we have a debt levy of $831,175. Last year, our debt levy was $912,212. So we are proposing at this point to reduce our debt levy by $81,000, even though we have additional debt levies that staff is planning for, which is a council decision, but just to kind of put it out there for you all to see. Also in the memo, we had, I don't know where the page down is, where that went. But I also gave you a chart of just kind of our past year's levy history.
This is my favorite chart.
And I went way back, Gabe, way back.
Inflation adjusted 2022 will be the lowest debt levy payment this city has seen in decades.
And I think, like, as I explained in the memo, I mean, we had to increase our debt levy significantly because of the debts that we issued. We assumed we were going to get special assessments to pay off that debt. We did not collect that special assessment revenue. Therefore, we needed to make up the difference in the debt levy. And that's why the cash balance after we paid that February 1st payment was millions in the hole, because we never adjusted our debt levy for what we really needed it to be.
And it was multiple projects that happened with, but they're all paid off now.
Those are all
And
paid
the
off.
assessments are still out there, and maybe someday magically money will appear. But we've paid off the debt, and the debt levy is now back into reasonable.
And this is kind of like the whole Brainerd Oaks and the Serene Pine developments, that the agreement that we have with the developer currently, That's going into our capital project fund. It's no longer going into here because the debt is paid off, but kind of just give you a little bit of history of why it increased so significantly. And I think going through that calculation every year,
Well, we're more concerned about why it decreased so significantly, and that was because of the smart council managing the funds properly.
you got it, Gabe. You made smart infrastructures, investments. Yes. So that's just the discussion. I think the biggest thing for council to adjust is, to look at is to review kind of how we have put it together. We'll update it and depending on how collections go. But we also want your input on the 2022 construction projects, if you think that we should continue to bond for those. I kind of put some information on there that the city does levy for road projects. It's about $400,000 for 2021. But this generally covers the maintenance, the crack sealing, the patching, the striping, and engineering staff who works on the road construction projects. It actually doesn't go to the cost of the construction project. So that's kind of why we've always issued debt for those projects.
And we've issued debt over a long enough period of time that essentially every year there is a debt issuance falling off,
Correct.
and we're issuing a new instrument. Basically, that is just leveled over time.
Right. And I did include in the packet, just kind of based on levy year, these are the payments that are due. It doesn't go into account any special assessment revenue, that kind of stuff that would come off, but these are just the payments. And so you can see that, we have a debt issue falling off here, which we would need to levy, this is capital improvement, this is pure levy, but, exactly what Gabe said, we're hoping to be consistent, $100,000 every year. One falls off, we add one. One falls off, we add one. I think we're gonna see a little bit more fall off in the upcoming years because we have capital equipment certificates that are falling off. Those are only 3 years generally. We do have 7 for the fire truck and that kind of situation, but I'm thinking we're gonna see another equipment certificate fall off next year. That's why it lowered, even though we're adding 2 more debt issues.
Well, I imagine our boys in red will be able to fill that.
So any thoughts on the preliminary debt levy and if it looks good until we get through September and then?
Looks good to me.
It looks good. Thanks for putting all this information together and getting it out there that anybody in the public who's interested can watch us on our tape delayed streaming on the World Wide Web. Or read our packets, which are even more fun than the meetings themselves. So with that, with no questions, it's a lot of great information though, Connie, really, I appreciate you putting it all together for us. And so early in the year, we've gone through 3 or 4 different levies already, and it's just the second day of summer. With that, I guess I'll take a motion, well, I don't need a motion to adjourn. With that, nothing else to come before the committee, we will adjourn and take a 7-minute break.